soon as it hits 4:01.
Glasses broke, so I'll be wearing these for the next few days.
You still look cute.
Yep.
Thanks. Just can't see as good out of them.
Okay.
Ready?
Ready. Okay.
All right.
Admitting all.
Hello. Welcome, 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 everybody. We are so happy that you have made your way here. We're happy to see you. We're glad that you're here. We are happy that you have made your way here to this sorting soup. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are going to be welcome to the Sorting Soup Book Club. The Ladle and Literature Society is presenting Witches, Whores, and Rebels today. And we're going to be viewing and discussing about a 20-minute video today. But right now, we are currently live streaming on YouTube. So if you do not want your face seen, now's the time to turn off your video. But we are so happy that you have made it here. And now that I've said that, who's we? The kitchen crew. We, the kitchen crew, Cecilia, facilitator from Southeast Michigan, Dr. Chris, co-facilitator from Texas, and Dr. Melissa, co-facilitator from Canada. Rebecca, not available with us today, but Laura G, timekeeper and tech support extraordinaire, will be taking her place. So we do have an amazing crew to support today. And what are we supporting? Well, Beth, would you mind going over our group norms?
Oh boy. Okay. Group norms. Raise your digital hand to contribute to the discussion. Keep it civil and constructive. If you perceive a problem, propose a solution. No spamming in the chat. Take breaks or step away if you need to. This group space is for collective viewing and analysis, emotional analytical processing of difficult material, and turning awareness into clinical lawful action. What does that say?
Responding with clarity instead of panic. That's it. You got it,
Okay,
girl.
great. Fantastic.
Thank you so much. I
The
appreciate you.
glasses.
I know. I should have thought about that. I wasn't thinking. Goodness gracious. All right. Today on the agenda, though, we are going to be viewing part 3, Feminist Futurism, and chapter 1, How the Sausage Was Made. One of my favorite titles in the series. It's about a 20-minute video. I accidentally put 30 minutes on there. But then we'll have a large portion of our time will be spent in discussion, not just discussion of what we watched, but how we can then attribute that in our lives and what we can do about it. And then at the end of the time we have together today, just the last 15 minutes, we're just going to run over some self-care, because if you remember, self-care is radical resistance. It is the way we take care of ourselves and each other. It's the way we get through this, the way we don't burn out, the way we continue to move forward. All right. So before all of that, though, we have a little moment to just take a breath, to ground ourselves, to give grace, to think about, what do you need from this soup? So for just a moment, we just need to reset, to ground, to make sure that we know where we are. So find a comfortable position, sitting upright with your feet flat on the floor, or standing if you prefer. You can close your eyes or just soften your gaze. This is your time. But take a deep breath in and let it out. Right now, just notice what you're carrying. Maybe it's tension in your shoulders or racing thoughts about what's next. Or maybe it's frustration or exhaustion or urgency or joy. Whatever it is, you don't need to fix anything or push it away. Just name it silently to yourself. I'm noticing anger, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, or my body is tired. Let each thought or feeling be witnessed without judgment. You're allowed to feel what you feel. It's a safe space, open. Now, bring your attention to your breath. We're going to breathe together in a simple rhythm. 4 counts in, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. It's called a box breath. So breathe in through your nose, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale through your mouth, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do that one more time. Breathe in through your nose, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale through your mouth, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Now just breathe on. Feel your belly rise and fall. And if 4 counts is too much, make it 3. The rhythm is what matters. Your breath is lowering your stress right now in real time, lowering your blood pressure. Now, widen your awareness beyond just your breath. Notice your whole body. Feel your feet on the ground. That's your foundation. Feel the weight of your body held and supported. Expand your awareness to include the sounds around you, the air on your skin, the people in this space with you. Take one final deep breath in. And as you breathe out, remind yourself, I have what I need for this moment. When you're ready, gently open your eyes and come back to the room. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Thank you for taking this time. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you for that moment. All right, let's get in the soup together. Today, I'm just going to leave open what systems of power have shaped your understanding of the world. Did you see any parallels between the events of the past and today? I will also say last week, y'all, you were awesome. I forgot to mention that. I apologize for not being here last week, but you did just fine. Not sure why I'm here at all. What questions has the series raised for you? What are you ready to unlearn and what are you ready to reclaim? These are all things that we're just thinking about as we watch these videos, as we continue to learn, as we continue to discuss. And I think I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing for now because we are going to go ahead and watch the video. It's about a 20-minute video. And as Laura gets that set up, I will, oh, she's faster than I thought. Never mind, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just roll it.
Okay.
So now you know the history, some of it anyway. And believe me, there is much more where that came from, but I couldn't possibly cover everything in this series. No way. As they say, once you know something, you can't unknow it. Or at least you shouldn't. Capitalism cannot exist without patriarchy and white supremacy. They are three pillars of oppression that mutually reinforce each other. To dismantle any of them, you must understand them and how they work together. Chapter 1. How the Sausage Was Made. Bell Hooks spent her entire career hammering home one unflinching truth. You can't pull apart racism, capitalism, and patriarchy and pretend that they're separate issues. They're braided together, working as a single system that she named white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. It's a lot, I know, but the term is very accurate. To Hooks, this was a way of naming the everyday violence that kept certain people, especially Black women, at the bottom of every hierarchy. She argued that patriarchy depends on capitalism to extract women's unpaid labor and to keep men invested in dominance. Capitalism, in turn, depends on racism to divide workers, justify poverty, and naturalize inequality. Racism and patriarchy work together to keep wealth and power in the hands of the white elite, while women of color carry the heaviest burden of survival, care work, and resistance. She showed how this framework operated everywhere, from the nuclear family to Hollywood films to the wage gap. In her classic work, Ain't I a Woman? Black Women and Feminism, she dissected how slavery and its aftermath turned Black women into the linchpin of exploitation, forced into labor, denied femininity, and treated as expendable. In feminist theory, from margin to center, she criticized white middle-class feminism for ignoring race and class, insisting that liberation had to come from centering the experiences of the most marginalized. And in The Will to Change, she showed how patriarchy also poisons men, trapping them in emotional repression and violent domination in service of capitalism's needs. Her concept of the white supremacist capitalist patriarchy was radical because it refused false choices. You couldn't fix sexism without tackling racism. You couldn't solve racism without dismantling economic exploitation, and so on. Hooks named how the system reproduced itself by seducing people into believing that domination was natural. Men over women, white over black, rich over poor. By calling it out directly, she has armed generations of activists, writers, and teachers with a clear diagnosis. The monster that we're fighting is one body with three heads. Let's start with some definitions. What is capitalism? Capitalism is an economic system where private individuals and corporations own and control the means of production, things like factories, land, and technology, and where goods and services are produced to generate profit, not to meet everyone's needs. In capitalism, the vast majority of people must sell their labor, their time, energy, and skills in order to survive, while a much smaller group at the top, the owners, profit from that labor without having to do the work themselves. Karl Marx called these two groups the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, workers and owners. With me so far? Wealth and resources are distributed unequally on purpose, because the system depends on hierarchy, competition, and constant growth. Capitalism isn't just about money, it's about power. Who has it, who doesn't, and what you're allowed to do with your life, your body, and your time. It shapes how we work, the long hours, low pay, the gig economy. It shapes how we live, the rent hikes, the medical debt, and the food deserts. It shapes how we relate to each other. Care is commodified, and labor is both racialized and gendered. But it doesn't operate in a vacuum. Capitalism has always depended on colonialism, slavery, patriarchy, and white supremacy to extract wealth from some groups in order to enrich others. In other words, capitalism isn't just a form of economy. It's a social system that organizes who gets to thrive and who gets left behind. What is patriarchy? Patriarchy is a social system where men hold disproportionate power in households, workplaces, governments, and culture, and where masculinity is treated as the default or the ideal. It's not just about individual men being controlling bastards. It's about rules, norms, and institutions that prioritize men's authority over women and femme-presenting people, reward aggression, stoicism, and control, devalue care work, emotional labor, and collaboration, and define success exclusively in terms of male-coded power. In patriarchy, gender is a hierarchy, and the hierarchy is built into everything from wages to medical research to who gets believed in court. Think of Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. Patriarchy teaches us that mothers are responsible for every problem, that men are owed sex, praise, and submission. Queerness and gender fluidity are threats to the order, and power only belongs in certain bodies. It is enforced not only by men, but by institutions, by women, and by a culture that's been trained to uphold it. It tells us who's allowed to lead, who must obey, and who gets punished when they step out of line. What is white supremacy? White supremacy is a system where white people as a group are considered inherently superior to people of other races, and that this superiority should shape how society is structured. Whiteness is treated as the norm, the default, the center of everything. It's not just individual racism or hate groups. It's a system of power that was built to keep white people in control of politics, land, wealth, and culture. It is embedded in who gets hired, who gets housing, who gets healthcare, who gets believed, protected, and invested in, and who doesn't. White supremacy is institutional power plus racial hierarchy, and it shows up in redlining and generational wealth gaps, policing, incarceration, and immigration policies, school funding, media narratives, and voter suppression, and rules of professionalism and respectability. White supremacy was built through colonization, genocide, and slavery, and is maintained through policy, media, silence, and denial. It shapes who gets to feel safe, secure, and celebrated and free, and who is treated as disposable. I have a friend. Some of you may know her on the internet as the YV Edit. She's also the co-host of the Audacity podcast. She did a series on YouTube a while back called The Pillars of Patriarchy. YV Edit identified 4 pillars of patriarchy: women's invisible labor, the myth of masculinity, the sidelining of women, and women's compliance. We're going to call these 4 pillars invisible/unpaid labor, gender roles, punishment, and compliance. Patriarchy fundamentally has one goal: to maintain gender hierarchy. Let's do the same thing for capitalism and white supremacy. I think capitalism's 4 pillars would be labor exploitation, the maximization of profit by underpaying workers or not paying them at all, privatization of resources, enclosure, land theft, and corporate ownership, wage dependence, forcing people into the labor market in order to survive, and endless accumulation, growth for growth's sake, no matter the cost. Greed. The fundamental goal is the first pillar, labor exploitation, and the remaining 3 pillars are done in service of the first. Make sense? For white supremacy, the pillars are racial hierarchy, the invention and enforcement of race to justify domination, violence and terror, policing, lynching, incarceration, militarization, cultural erasure, assimilation, banning languages, rewriting history, and economic extraction, slavery, colonialism, racialized labor exploitation. Once again, the fundamental goal, pillar 1, maintaining the racial hierarchy. And once again, the remaining 3 pillars are done in the service of the first. Each system has specific mechanisms by which they function, and all those mechanisms interlocked with and support those of the other systems. I took the liberty of creating an oppression flowchart to illustrate this. Capitalism feeds on the unpaid labor that women provide under patriarchy. Patriarchy hides behind white supremacy's protections of the gender hierarchy, and white supremacy keeps the workforce divided for capitalism. And by the way, the punishment that women endure when we refuse to conform to gender roles and know our place in society and stay in it, that's what misogyny is. Patriarchy comprises the rules, the code of conduct, and misogyny is the enforcement mechanism. White supremacy is the code of conduct. Racism is the enforcement mechanism. Patriarchy is the oldest system of oppression. It even predates white supremacy. And white supremacy was invented in service of capitalism. So in my mind, this is how these systems of oppression are interconnected. We have patriarchy at the top because it's the system that predates the others. The goal of patriarchy is to establish a gender hierarchy. To do that, we need rigid gender roles, created through law and culture, that ensure that women perform invisible, unpaid labor, reproductive labor being the main focus. And we use violence to ensure compliance. Witch trials, rape, domestic violence, etc. And the state of reproductive slavery this creates then increases the labor supply for capitalism, whose goal is getting the cheapest labor for the maximum profit. This is accomplished through resource theft, enclosures, and privatization of land, which ensures wage dependence, which allows for the accumulation of resources, constant economic growth to maximize profit. And of course, part of that resource theft is not just stealing from your own country, it's stealing from other countries. That's when we go to white supremacy. The goal of white supremacy is racial hierarchy. How is it achieved? Resource extraction and cultural erasure through violence and terror. Among the resources extracted are people, which provides a free or cheap labor resource for capitalism. White supremacy is also reinforced by patriarchy's well-established gender hierarchy, the idealization and restrictions of womanhood. Because the ideal womanhood they're talking about is white womanhood. Because when you live under a white supremacist capitalist patriarchy, white womanhood is the only kind of womanhood that matters. And that's been the game for about the last half a millennia. But the period from about 1500 to 1700, that's when they really locked it in. When all the gears of these systems locked in and solidified. And it's no coincidence that the Malleus Maleficarum, the handbook for hunting and persecuting witches, more aptly titled The Handbook for Hunting and Persecuting Women, was published in the late 15th century, just before this time period, in 1486. When I first mapped this out, my jaw hit the floor. Look at the timeline. Look at all these events. Slavery, the ultimate system of labor exploitation. Plague outbreaks that wipe out a third to a half of the population. And then when the birth rate anxiety starts and governments are suddenly obsessed with demographics, colonial expansion and land enclosures start happening around the same time, overlapping almost entirely with the witch trials, which intensified greatly during those 200 years right after Pope Not-So-Innocent VIII wrote his papal bull on witchcraft, and incel priest Heinrich Kramer wrote his little Femicide for Dummies book. But when these systems start to crack, when capitalism feels its grip loosening, what happens? More primitive accumulation. You see the wealth gap grow. The ultra-wealthy hoard more and more resources. Wages are suppressed. Western powers are trying to extract more and more from developing nations. The destruction of Palestine, etc. We've been seeing all these things intensify in the last 30 to 50 years. We are in the middle of a mass campaign of primitive accumulation by the ruling class. In response to what? The post-World War II social safety nets established in Europe. The New Deal. The New Deal was born out of crisis. In the wake of the Great Depression, as millions of Americans faced unemployment, hunger, and homelessness, President Franklin D. Roosevelt offered a sweeping series of reforms and public programs aimed at stabilizing the economy. Through initiatives like Social Security, unemployment insurance, and massive infrastructure projects, the New Deal expanded the federal government's role in everyday life. But the purpose wasn't to overthrow capitalism. The purpose was to save capitalism from collapse. Roosevelt's goal was to preserve the system by reforming it just enough to restore faith and order. But the reforms went further than many in power had anticipated. The federal government protected the right of workers to form unions, and labor organizing surged. Wages started rising, not out of corporate generosity, but because workers had leverage. Unions grew strong, and strikes were common. Businesses, especially in the industrial North and agricultural South, began to push back. They feared the political power of a mobilized working class. The backlash came fast. By the late 1930s, conservative coalitions in Congress began rolling back some of the more progressive elements of the New Deal. The National Labor Relations Board was weakened, and Southern Democrats, fiercely opposed to both labor empowerment and racial integration, ensured that many New Deal programs excluded Black workers. What emerged was a restructured version of American capitalism, still rooted in private ownership and profit, but now with a fragile social safety net. The New Deal wasn't a revolution, it was a reset. It pulled the United States back from the brink and ensured that the working class was empowered just enough to protect the system, but not enough to change it. Labor was being compensated too well. People were getting too free. Labor movements had too much power. We are in the midst of a full-scale war on women's autonomy, and the Republican Party in the United States has gotten disturbingly good at this. It's not even covert anymore. They're doing it out in the open. Project 2025 isn't a secret. You can download it for free on the internet. The blueprint of exactly what they are planning to do. Across red states, they are rewriting the legal foundation of women's rights. Laws are being introduced to ban hormonal birth control, block pregnant women from filing for divorce, and roll back protections for abused mothers seeking custody of their children. These are strategic assaults on the legal mechanisms, like no-fault divorce, that women have relied on for decades to escape violence, coercion, and control. Most people don't realize that no-fault divorce is the reason women can leave a marriage without having to prove abuse, infidelity, or abandonment in a courtroom. Republicans want to drag us back to an era where women couldn't get out of a marriage unless they could prove wrongdoing. And we know how that goes when women go to the legal system to redress the harm done to us by men. For decades, the gold standard in child custody cases has been the best interest of the child, a flexible, evidence-based framework that prioritizes the child's emotional and physical safety above all else. But red states want to replace that standard with a mandatory 50-50 custody presumption. They've already done it in Kentucky. In 2018, the Kentucky legislature passed a joint custody law with a presumption of equal shared parenting time and permanent joint custody. Now, conservatives are excited because the divorce rates plummeted since that law was enacted. But that isn't actually good news. I'll let my friend Abby Eckel explain to you why.
Divorce plunged in Kentucky. Equal custody for fathers is a big reason why. A law setting 50-50 shared custody as the state standard was hailed as a victory for fathers. But it puts mothers and children at risk, and literally, who knew this? Every fucking mother in the world knew and knows this. You mean to tell me that the same men, these same fathers who refuse to participate in their own homes, who don't know their children's school, who don't know their kids' shoe size, who don't know what size clothes they wear, who don't know if they have any fucking allergies, who don't know their birth dates, you mean to tell me these same dudes are getting 50-50 shared custody? There's a reason it wasn't an automatic given for men to get 50-50 access to their children. And it's because they are not participants. They are passersby in their children's lives. They cannot care for them while they are married to their wives. They cannot care for them after the divorce. That has to be taken into consideration. These men that don't even know their own children, these men that don't know how to raise children because they just defaulted to their wives to do it, are now getting 50-50 custody, and that's going to keep women in marriages that they don't want to be in because they know that their children will be in danger.
See, on paper, it sounds fair, but in practice, it means that even if the father is abusive, controlling, or emotionally unsafe, he automatically gets half of the child's time, unless you can prove a reason that he shouldn't. Proving abuse in family court is very difficult. Also, in most states, proof of abuse of the mother doesn't always prove that the child is unsafe, because they either don't understand or don't care that any man who abuses his wife is going to eventually abuse his children as well. And just having to witness your mom be abused by your dad presents major psychological damage that lasts a lifetime, even if the violence is never directed specifically at you, the child. So in states with these kinds of laws, divorce rates will go down, but domestic violence fatalities go up, which has happened in Kentucky. This is not a coincidence. It's a calculated campaign to force women to stay married, stay pregnant, and stay dependent on men. At the same time, we have this massive online propaganda campaign promoting becoming a trad wife, a traditional wife. Politicians and conservative influencers are telling women not to pursue careers and financial independence, to give their husbands total control over their lives and the lives of their children. This is structural patriarchal violence. You have the behavior of the individual men, plus the legal system that supports it and allows it to continue. We've seen the criminalization of abortion and birth control. The origins of this actually began in the 1980s and 1990s, right around the time the US government started busting unions. Interesting. Not a coincidence. Why? Because they need an increase in the labor force, the cheap labor force, more primitive accumulation. We're seeing a rise in women being the targets of male violence. Overall, crime is dropping, but violent crime against women is rising. We are seeing more anti-feminist propaganda than ever before. Conservatives are telling women to marry young and not go to college. And women, particularly Black women, are being driven out of the workforce at alarming rates. We're seeing attacks on DEI, an attempt to strengthen racial hierarchies. Back to the flowchart. Right now, we are seeing all of these enforcement mechanisms intensify. These systems are playing out the way I just explained right in front of us. But what makes this moment in time so special is that global exploitation now has global resistance. And with the advent of mass media, particularly social media, we can talk to each other. We can find out what's going on in other parts of the world. We're not as isolated from information as we used to be. If you don't value women, you don't value people. Because when you devalue the source, you devalue everything that comes from that source. You automatically devalue the labor that those people do and anything that that labor produces. So when you devalue women, you devalue everyone and everything. Capitalism was never about freedom or progress. It has one goal: to turn one person's work into another person's wealth. That's it. That's the goal. That has always been the goal. It's always been about extracting value from people, not creating value for people. And who pays the steepest price? Women, especially non-white women, through our bodies, our unpaid labor, and our lives. Capitalism has survived precisely because it thrives on inequality, pitting workers against each other through white supremacy, pitting men against women through patriarchy, and then scaling that exploitation globally. So where do we go from here? What should be our focus as feminists, our actions going forward? I'm about to tell you what I think we should be doing. First and foremost, here in the US, we have to deal with an impending crisis: the collapse of our infrastructure, or at least large parts of it.
Okay. That is where she ends that section, which just bothers me so much. And I'm sure it's because it's like the best possible way to end right there, but I just want her to keep going, like just finish that thought right there. But all right, y'all, that was a lot. Anybody want to get us started on our discussion? Or I have a lot of notes. So uh Constance, go for it. Get us started.
So, you know, as we've come through another weekend where our president dominates the headlines, and you could say, well, it's not his fault that he got shot at, but it was his fault he got shot at, really, because as we've seen with the Luigi Mangione shooting of the healthcare executive, it's because we're living in a time where people do not believe that the institutions of government are going to protect them. So they have to take the law into their own hands. Um, and so I think we saw another more evidence of that this weekend, without knowing a lot yet about the would-be the shooter. So, and I do know he was a history teacher, so that says something for him. But in any event, I think we can start by never again electing a failed real estate executive as our president, because all of those criticisms of capitalism kind of reside in a New York hotelier and would-be real estate mogul. He kept falling back on his father to bail him out. And you can see that in his foreign policy. You know, he's going to cure the problems in Gaza by putting up big hotels there that his family would get rich from. And you know, he's got he knows how to make deals, so he develops this crypto scam and gets billions of dollars from the Saudis and so on. I mean, he just embodies all of these wrongs that we've got to address going forward. And and I just think he's, and he was a misogynist, he was a pedophile, he was all of those things that kind of come from that sense of I can do anything and nobody's going to stop me thing. And and my control over land is all powerful, and and it started there. So let's not elect that kind of person again, please. No.
I completely agree. And I look at 47 as a boil on the butt of humanity most days, but I look at him also as a symptom of capitalism, of our economic system and what it has produced. Because if you look at him, I mean, he's all greed. I mean, he's
Mhm.
100%
Yeah.
greed.
Mhm.
And whatever is in, like you said, billions of dollars, where did that money go? I mean, it certainly did not help our country.
No,
So,
no.
I completely agree with everything you stated. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Constance. All right, Nora, you're up next.
Yeah, I usually think people don't go far enough on the left because I'm not a centrist. So I usually am like, oh, take it one more step, you know?
Yeah.
But this time I have a pushback.
Hmm.
When she said that, I was horrified to find out that in Kentucky, the law is a 50-50 custody agreement.
That's
I
terrifying.
don't I don't agree with that. And I don't agree with it for men or women or children. I don't think that should be the rule. There are good mothers, there are good fathers, and I have seen a marriage where if the father hadn't gotten divorced and taken his child, he would have lost that child. Child custody would have come and taken the poor kid. So she really bashed men there with no mention of the fact that there are bad mothers. So
You
I
are absolutely correct.
just got to get that off my chest. But going back to just something that Constance just mentioned about what happened last night, I caution everybody when you watch the news today what people are saying because what's happening right now is kind of like when Renee Good and was murdered. They got on, their platforms 10 minutes after the shooting and said, it was retaliatory. She was a terrorist. She deserved to die, and no investigation. And
Yeah.
the same thing happened last night. People got on their phones and said, oh, the assassination of President Trump, and there was so many, one person was killed, and one person, just lie, not lies, but like disinformation. And
Yeah.
so people this morning are still saying all these incoherent, not well thought out, and they haven't stood the test of time to make statements of fact. So the shooter was on the second floor above where the official dinner was. He wasn't even on the floor. So to say that he was there to assassinate anybody in the ballroom, we don't even know that. There were
Right.
other events going on. I mean, we know nothing. We gotta, like she said, we know he was a teacher from California that took a train, and we're not sure how he got the gun in and things like that. But just wait, just wait. Well, we'll learn.
Exactly. And honestly, with the I don't understand why we jump to conclusions at all. We should know better. You always are supposed to wait. This regime, this administration jumps to conclusions. They're the ones who usually put stuff out before, I mean, and I personally have not been paying attention to the news, but I did happen to hear that Kash Patel's been having some difficulties. They've been saying that he's been drinking a lot and blacking out, stuff like that. I would not trust an investigation by the FBI into this personally. That's the problem, right? We have
Yeah,
these problems of not being able to trust everything that's going on. But you're right. We have to wait. We can't jump to conclusions because we certainly don't have access to the information, and we need to wait to see what everything comes out. I will tell you the first thing I thought of when all of this happened. Wow, his ratings certainly were low, weren't they?
yeah. Well, the left, a lot of big people on the left are saying that it was a setup.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's
Yeah,
what the same thing that happened in Butler. Like that this is his play when he has nowhere else to go. So I would like to wait to see how they even play the investigation, how much information we get, how, what does it make sense? Does, who is this person? Does it make sense? Is he even from the left? Like what,
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
exactly.
So thank you, Nora. Thank you for bringing us back to holding us back. I appreciate you.
Right.
All right. Miss Beth, how you doing?
Hello. So I am one of those people who think it was a setup because the reaction was very slow. The special police or whatever looked like they were G.I. Joe posing.
Oh my gosh, waiting for the cameras?
Yeah. And there was a guy just sitting over off to the side, still eating his salad, not very concerned. And most of the people in there just kind of stayed there and were still milling about and talking on their phones. Like, if it was a real situation, they would have evacuated the whole area.
Yeah.
There would have been more than just like 6 cops in there or military or whatever they were. They wouldn't have stopped at the end of the stage, looked around, and then kept going. It's ridiculous. So Patty texted me last night. She's like, "Are you seeing this shenanigans play out?" And I was like, "No, what? I'm painting my kitchen." And so I called Sabrina, and after Patty told me what was happening, she's like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever." Like, it was no big deal. We just went back to whatever we were doing because, like, I don't care. It's because, I mean, he's trying to make all the Democrats look terrible because he wants to jail us at some point. And they brought back this. He signed an executive order or something about the firing squads coming back. And from what I understand, there's only 3 people on death row right now, thank God. But with the way that he's running things and arresting people, and I'm telling you guys, in that death memoriam thing, it says the death penalty applies to all those who traverse the United States border illegally. Page 2, section 2, paragraph 2, the last sentence. So, yeah, I had Sabrina read it and she agreed with me that she thought that, they were gonna try to, kill immigrants as well. So, anyway.
No, I hear you. I hear you. And I agree. Like just like she said, they published this. We've been studying this. We studied this
Yeah.
from before. Project 2025 laid all of
Yeah.
this out. Like they are in the process of just continuing everything that they said. Just because they don't come out and say, we'd like to shoot all brown people or get rid of put them all into a
Right.
concentration camp or whatever. Just because they're not that candid about it anymore doesn't mean it's not happening. They're just much more sneaky about it. They don't want it in all of the headlines. They don't like the bad press. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Just Karen? Is it Karen? Freedom Warrior. Kathy.
Yep, Kathy.
Kathy, that was it. Sorry about that. How are
Oh,
you, dear?
I'm good, and I missed you last week.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I'm glad you're feeling better.
Me too.
I wanted to get back to the video, and we're talking about women's rights.
Hmm?
And I have come upon a series on Hulu that I want to tell everybody about. It's called the Testaments. And what it is, it's kind of a modern day The Handmaid's Tale.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've read a book, one of the books. Go on, though.
But anyway, they've stopped at 5, and I am on pins and needles waiting for the next episode to start. And it goes through all of it. Women's rights, how, they were transformed. It starts with this young teenager who is just living in a society where there are like I don't remember, so many districts, and she's from one. And because both of her parents were recently killed, she has nowhere to go, so she signs up to go to Gilead.
Oh crap, like it's a real one. It's an extension.
Yes,
This is an
yes.
extension.
She
I heard
starts
about this.
she starts out, so in the first episode is so slow, but the second episode you see her and you actually see, oh, what's her name, who was the primary person in The Handmaid's Tale, June.
June, yeah.
You actually see her, and she is coming to save her. And this is like fairly modern times. The girl's on a skateboard in the second episode. It starts out slow, so keep with it. Picks up in the
Okay.
second one, and it's
Well,
awesome.
I look forward to watching it.
Yep, it's on Hulu.
Yeah, if you read the book, like she came out with a book that this is based on, and I have read
Mhm.
it, and it's not any less terrifying than the first. So I'm just gonna keep going. Yeah. Thank you
Right.
so much, though. It does have hope, though. This one has hope, and I mean the others did too. It was just
Yes, it's not all depressing. Get through episode one, go on to episode two, and then Jude tries to save her from Gilead. It's a whole
okay,
thing.
okay,
It's
shush,
the
shush.
whole thing.
No,
Okay.
no, we don't want to tell everybody. All
Okay.
right, all right. Constance, you're back up.
Yeah, in the, irony of ironies department, the shooter is going to be charged with using a firearm during a crime of violence and assault on a federal officer. So that is exactly the same crime that 100 January 6 rioters were charged
Oh,
with
yeah.
and were pardoned of by the person whose government is now charging this fellow with. So there's you know, irony is wasted on the stupid, said Oscar Wilde. So I think that certainly Trump would never see the irony in that. But again, it just goes to the rot that he has brought to our institutions, so that even the charging of crimes against people, I mean, it's all wrapped up in the uh, his tearing down of laws and norms, so that we, he is down, he has sort of ruined our respect for laws, I guess, because he has ruined our respect for laws by pardoning people, by throwing out juried decisions on January 6 rioters and everything. He has he has he has he has ruined our understanding of the legal system and our respect for it, because he has no respect for it. And if we have no respect for him, it's all a kind of a mixed up, kind of rotten mess. So I'm just, whatever he does kills things. Whatever Trump touches dies, and he is even, I think, sullied the charges against this person who tried to kill him, because he's doing exactly the same thing that January 6 rioters that he sicked on the federal government were doing.
I agree. And going back to the video, I mean, this video, the timing of it is pretty awesome. I love how this just happens. She's talking about labor unions rising, and we're about to, go into May Day this weekend. And I know we're going to have a lot of that on the mind, but we changed the system once. Like after the New Deal, the system began to change. And she even said it, like it started to change a little too much. Like
Mhm.
it did a little too
For
well.
two, for some,
For
yeah,
some,
for
right,
some, yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
And I just can't help but wonder, like, that this is it. This right here, like the linchpin, like the fact that the people, whoever wins, comes out on top, will be responsible for institutional, or for putting these or fixing what has been wrong, or doubling down, tripling down on what is going wrong. Like it's a
Mm-hmm.
either or. And what we like, the whole point of what we're doing here is tearing apart the patriarchy and the racism and the capitalism, to understand it, to get to the insides, the ugly insides in our own lives, like to understand where it affects us in our own lives, so that we can attack it in our own lives. Because if each one of us comes at it in our own lives, and then come together and then attack it on the next level as a group, y'all, that's how we take that's how this happened. We just have to educate and inform and understand and move through this, so that we can see those two pillars, the pillars that she was talking about, the patriarchy and the capitalism, in our own lives, how we can affect those. And I know that Indivisible has something going on with just a different kind of pillars. Yes, Miss Linda. You are up next. I just rambled on there for a minute. You go ahead. You can, there you go.
No, you did not ramble on. And I just want to say this is why history matters. We really need to take a walk back and look at this from a historical standpoint. Even if you go back to Kemet, to the ancient days, and come all the way up to the King James Version of the Bible, and let's come on through the witch hunts and really understand. And then midwifery, how the midwives were suppressed and forced into the hospital settings, and how that has changed women's health, and how we've been treated as women as a whole, our whole economic piece. I think that we don't put it all together, and then we develop amnesia when we move on. And then they've just blatantly handed us Project 2025. They gave it to us in plenty of time for
Yeah.
us to really take action. And we did not. And where are we now with the planning stages? We talk about Project 2028, but who's at the tables and where are we? Where are we meeting to work on this? And then we have to put some guardrails up so that this doesn't happen again. Eleanor Roosevelt, she gave us a path. She helped us to open this door. And here we are. And
Yeah.
why? Why are we here? So that's all I just want to focus on the historical piece of it. Take a look back, walk forward, and put the guardrails in place.
I
Thank you.
thank you. And I agree. And I look back and wonder, I have been watching a lot of television, Netflix, and I've been everything. One of them was The Man in the High Castle, and one of the Nazi things was, this will be the war to end all wars. It'll be the last war. Men always say that. I'm sorry. Men always say this will be the last war. But if there's men on the planet, it will not be the last war, because men have testosterone and men will always want to fight. Like that's just how stuff goes. If you know psychology, that's just how that goes. So there's always going to be people who want to fight. And I mean, yeah, there are women who want to fight too, so I'm not going to like knock them either. But the this idea that we can once and for all get rid of all of the bad in the world, it's not a reality. And that's what they're trying to sell. And they do it through eugenics. They do it through a classism that is disgusting. And they do it again through misogyny and all of that. But yes, Miss Linda.
But they've handed us this manosphere.
Yes.
And I think that we can ask other men to hold men accountable and to teach. I'm asking my sons to teach their sons and to make them accountable and to model for their sons how women should be treated. And I know that my sons treat their wives the way that I have and their father has taught them to treat women. And so it has to be taught. I always say each one teach one. And so we just have to hold each other, hold men accountable, hold our sons accountable, and just make sure that we're moving forward. No, there is no perfection, but there is an accountability.
Yeah, I agree there for sure. I had a midwife when I was pregnant with my daughter, and she was just so wonderful, and she was right there with, it turns out, like, even her son ended up being my dentist. It was a family affair. But anyway, I agree. Going back real quick, I wanted to go back to the bad moms exist too. I That is something that I've noticed about Teresa Lee. She is a strong feminist, and I understand that. But but that's absolutely correct too. We cannot the 50-50 parenting, that's not in the child's best interest. What they should look at what's in the child's best interest, whether or not it's the mother, the father, whichever. It, Personal anecdotal, I have both of those cases in my personal life, like where a mother is crap and she abandoned her child, and then again where a father is crap and he abandoned their child. Like I have experienced both of those things, and neither one is good, neither one is great, and they both should be accounted for and ready. Here's what I don't understand. We have all of this data that we have collected over decades. Why don't we use it? How on earth, why don't we use it in order to actually help people, as opposed to trying to find, I don't even know what they use the data for, because they're certainly not finding the ways in order to better the system. Why would they do that? Then they would have nothing better to do, right? Sorry, y'all. Anyway, we're coming up on 5 o'clock. I did want, I also wanted to go back to women cannot trust the legal system. That was another thing that she kind of made a side eye to, which in my personal experience, my family has not been able to trust the women in my family have not been able to trust the legal system. So I understand that fear. Especially my mother was married to a wealthier man, and he just obliterated her in court, right? Because he had all the money and she did not. And it was there are just times when all of that happens. But okay, real quickly though, I do want to go back to, if we're ready to move on real quick to self-care. We can always go back to this. We don't need to talk about self-care for the rest of the time because it is a whole half hour. But I did want to talk to y'all because I missed last week. I missed last week. I wish I could say I was taking self-care, but I was just being sick. That's all I was doing. So what I did was I added the week 16 to the slides. And so I will add that to the recap this week so that you have that, just so have that information. And then this week, we're moving into May and Beltane and some boundaries, because you are not a machine and rest is part of the work. And um, believe me when I say things like this, it's projection. The other side is not the only side that projects. I am trying to remind myself that I am not a machine and that rest is part of the work. So this week, in the morning, or every morning, it's going to be like, the first day is rating your energy, second day honoring your effort, micro breaks, and then taking one thing off your plate. things like that. But what I would like to know is, how have y'all been taking care of yourselves? What have you been doing? Because I know that you have not been taking time off from the news. So you have had all of that nastiness in your brains. So what have you been up to? And again, if you don't want to talk about this and you want to go back to the other, that's fine too. But here we are. So who's up? Who'd like to let me know what's going on? Anybody? Constance, thank you for being kind enough to raise your hand.
Talkative.
Talkative, yeah.
Um, so count me among those who are not taking care of themselves. So I'd like to, and I think about it a lot, but I haven't actually done it. But I do, in a way, I'm taking care of myself because I'm being very as productive as I can be in terms of, the on the immigration issue, trying to help this person I'm gotten very familiar with, whose husband was abducted during Midway Blitz. So in a way, I'm kind of letting out a lot of stuff that I had held inside for a long time. So in a way, even though I'm tiring myself, I'm taking care of myself by doing, what I have wanted to do for a long time and what I think is right. But that physically, that doesn't always jibe. So, I do have to, just have some sort of physical outlet other than walking my dog Tommy. I have to have some other physical outlet, and I haven't latched on to that yet.
Understandable. I'm looking at I want to go swimming. Like, we have YMCA, a couple of them, but they're like
Mhm.
30 to 45-minute drives, which is worth it for the
Mhm.
YMCA, I suppose,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
just have to figure it out.
Mhm. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very
All
much.
right.
And I
Mhm.
hope you get to taken better care. Ms. Linda, you're up next.
Yes, well, I have been listening to more white noise music, and I even go to sleep with it on my headset. And I haven't been watching the news. So other than, tuning in to NWSO FA, I've taken a break from it and been drinking my herb teas and that's it. And
Right.
just breathing.
I
So
tell you
that's
what,
been my self-care.
just taking breaks from the news, guys, like, really, it helps so much. I can't tell you. Just, it increases your e- everything, all the dopamine and serotonin, like, it just straight up. Miss Beth, you're up next.
So I have picked up a new habit,
Mm,
which is art, which is painting. And some of you may have seen my work on Facebook, and I'm trying to get a website together. So even though what I'm doing is like work, it's stuff for me and it keeps me off the news cycle for sure. I think I've only turned on my TV maybe once in the past month since I've started drawing.
ooh,
Um, and let's see, a couple of days ago, I painted my kitchen cabinets a pink
Yeah.
color.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the color is called Ooh La La.
ooh,
And it's kind of like a champagne pink, so it's not like Mary Kay pink, but it's, so it's fun. Like, so I'm trying to make my environment just comfortable and where I want to be, just like a little heavenly safe
Oasis.
space. Yeah, a little oasis.
That's
So,
perfect.
yeah.
I cannot wait to come visit and see your champagne cabinets.
My ooh
Your
la las.
your ooh la las. Oh my gosh, that's so great. All right, Ms. Maria, you're up next. Oh, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. I can ask to unmute you too. There you go. Does that help? Oh, Maria, are you there? There
Uh,
you are.
am I okay? Um, oh, you'll like this, Beth. There's a YouTube person. She's a DIY. Oh God, I don't know her name, but she's a what I would call a young chick in that, and she painted her cabinets pink, and she does renter friendly. Everything she does can be like removed in that, but she does like these really cool temporary things, and she shows you how to do stuff like that. Okay,
Yeah.
so look up DIY renter friendly and you'll come across her. I think
Okay.
she's out of California, but I'm not positive. There's a couple of them like that actually, and they're all good. Um, what I do for self-care, I also do the art stuff. I've gotten into wreath making, for Easter, springtime, because I also celebrate Beltane and things like that. I did bunny rabbits, I decoupaged, all this stuff.
Ooh.
But my main thing is on a daily basis. I listen to meditation tapes when I go to sleep. Um, and grounding in the morning can help. 5-10 minute grounding meditation at night, though. For me, I listen to like basically where relaxation tapes, and also the oh, why can't I think of them? They're singing bowls. That's it.
Me
And
too.
that, yeah, I really like the singing bowls. That almost instantly I feel my shoulders relaxing, and because I become a turtle when I'm stressed out
Oh, yeah.
and stuff. So I find myself really relaxing and getting a good night's sleep. So that's just some of the stuff I do. That was it.
Thank you so much. And I too those bowls, the vibration, I tell you what, they can really they help with your vagus nerve. They help with all sorts of things. Love those bowls. I listen to them every night when I go to sleep. Um, thank you very much. Constance, did you have your hand up
I
again?
did, but I've been, kind of hogging the airwaves, so I didn't want to, do that too much. But I do something similar when I go to sleep, which is listen to history. But so I did buy this great book on the life of Thomas Jefferson by John Meacham because I wanted to go there. I wanted to understand, what this guy was kind of made of and all about. And I'm so glad I did. And a lot of um, myths about him I have been dispelled, and not the ones you think. But he was, the first really democratic kind of power to the people kind of president, and yet he acted, he expanded the powers of the presidency so much during his 2 terms
Yeah.
that I was quite surprised actually. Um, I what he did with Sally Hemings can be looked upon as terrible and should in many ways. I can also understand where he was coming from, and that she was a sister to his wife. She was a half sister to his wife, looked like his wife. his wife on her deathbed said, "Please don't marry again," and he promised he wouldn't because she had a stepmother who was terrible. And so he was keeping his promise to his wife, was attracted to, saw this person who looked like a good stand-in for his wife. And maybe she loved him. I don't know. But she stayed with him, for a long time. And there was something between them. So in any event, it's a much more nuanced I'm getting a much more nuanced understanding of this very complicated man, but who in the final analysis, his words spread throughout the entire world and encouraged people to think, yes, that we can govern ourselves. So he did that. And a lot of other things, but nothing is totally black and white, is no pun intended.
That's
Uh,
so true. And
and
I did a report on him when I was like in third grade, and I know that I didn't even, of course, it's third grade. I didn't even
mhm,
touch the surface of anything that's real about him. But then I looked at it like later on in life and going back, and there was one sentence in there about him and this what he did with his slaves and all
mhm,
of that. So
mhm,
I at least got one sentence in, even in the
yeah,
third grade.
and even in the third grade. So yeah, I just think that, well, so history to me is soothing. It kind of opens up a lot of inner anger you have for because you don't know the entire story,
Yeah.
um, one way or the other, and it makes you think, and it is calming, at the end of the day. I've found, so I go to bed listening to my history books.
Well, that's wonderful. And I agree that history, I my first tour of college when I fresh out of high school, I wanted to be a forensic psychologist. And so I had a lot of interesting classes like victimology and serial killer class, and it was awesome. It was it was one of my favorite times. But one of the things we did was go in and study cold cases and all of that. And so my brain, I think in my early, I was 18, 17, 18, 19 years old when I was doing all of that studying. That's how I feel comfortable now. When I need order, when I need to feel calm myself, I watch true crime because I know
I
that
do
there's
too.
going like they found the killer, right? I don't
Yeah.
watch the ones that they haven't found the killer yet. I watch the ones where they found the killer so I can see the process and I can I can go through it in my mind and my brain then feels this and my body feels this like I don't know, comfort. Yeah.
Release. Yeah.
Yeah, a
Justice
relief.
has been served. And we
Yes.
need that. We need that. Yes.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so a lot of times that's where my brain goes. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you though,
Mm-hmm.
Constance. I appreciate you. Marta, you're up next. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. So, in terms of the Thomas Jefferson thread of this conversation, I've been listening to We the People by Jill Lepore,
Yeah.
and it's really talking about the Constitution. So, it is kind of that same sort of soothing. It's, you're learning something, but it's in the past, so you're not as revved up as
Yeah.
things now.
Right.
Right.
She said about Thomas Jefferson, though, the Sally Hemings was his father-in-law's daughter with a slave. So that's how she was half sister to his wife, but she was his daughter's age. When he went to France, she went along as the daughter's companion, and he
Yeah.
started up with her. She was 15. So, in terms of like love, when we look at all the power dynamics of white is better, men are better, wealthy is better, what does it mean for a 15-year-old girl to, even if she thought she loved him, it was just so stacked against her really knowing herself. And this just kind of, killed me. Jill Lepore said that he convinced her to go back to the United States with him from France. So she was free in France when she was there. So I suppose she did that out of love and trust, but it certainly didn't work out well for her. So sorry, that's kind of a bummer aside on this whole
No, it's
self-care conversation, but I
once
thought it was
again,
interesting. I just learned it last week.
yeah, no. Once again, it's a piece to a puzzle, right? It's one piece to the history puzzle, and it makes it fills some info. Thank you, Marta.
Thank you.
All right, Larry. Hey, what you up to, sir?
Not much here, other than I just want to chime in and say if you ever get a chance to go to Monticello, it is well worth the trip. It's a great adventure, if you will. And that's all I got. Thank you.
I agree. It's totally worth the time and I was going to say the film, but that's when I went, I had film. I was taking
Yeah,
pictures with a camera with film. But
understood.
right. Thank you very much, Larry. All right, Constance. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I remember her striking a bargain with Sally Hemings striking a bargain with Thomas Jefferson in France because she could have stayed there as a free woman, to Maria's point. But she said, if you, and I'm trying to remember, maybe that's when I fell asleep, but she struck a bargain um, that she negotiated a term for her freedom. And AI isn't very clear right at the moment, but she struck a bargain for her freedom there with him, and I think of some of her relatives. And so she was, she was no dummy. She kind of, worked out something that was better for her and her family by agreeing to go back with him to Virginia, but and give up her chance of immediate freedom by staying in France. So again, complicated decisions. Women then, and certainly Black women, had maybe two choices in life, and you can see where it was painful to make those choices in many cases.
I cannot fathom. I cannot
Mhm.
fathom it. And the more I read, the more I learn, the more I see it in today, and the more I want to just rip it apart. I hate it. I hate every part of it. And wherever I mean, I know what I'm talking about is the power dynamics, and the differences, and where they specifically put in those types of situations for men to win, like, and because our system is built for men to win, and I hate it all. I hate every minute of it. And the fact that once again, they're trying to lower the age of, consent and all of that stuff across national board because the birth rate is low and all. If they really cared about the birth rate, if they honestly cared about that, they would create conditions in which people actually wanted to bring children into the world. But they don't. They don't care about that at all. They just they just care about having problems to fix. And
Right, right.
but all right. I am just going to stop it there. We have had a very, very good conversation. Lots to talk about, lots to think about, y'all. There we have a lot to think about. And she's taking us to a place where, you know, we learn different ways to attack the pillars, different ways to attack patriarchy, racism, and capitalism. And I think this goes right along with the same thing that Indivisible is doing in creating groups that focus on certain areas, the pillars of fascism. And I mean, you couldn't ask for just two better things just to coalesce. So I look forward to next week's conversation. I will get this recap out today. I have nothing better to do today, thank goodness. I do want to warn y'all, I have to have surgery on my foot, and apparently I have to be on my bottom for 4 weeks following the surgery. So the surgery is supposed to be scheduled like they're calling me tomorrow, and she's scheduling like 2 weeks out. And so after that, I'll still be able to do Zooms, obviously, because I'll be on my bottom, but I might be looking like this because my foot will be up high. But I just wanted to warn y'all. I'll keep you updated. Things have been a little hectic and crazy in my world, but I thank everybody. Thank you all for coming to Sorting Soup. I thank you all for being here for the conversations and for just taking time out on your Sunday. Because guys, I get it. Private time, weekends should be our own personal time, but this is a good time. It's such a lovely hour and a half to talk about these things in a different way. And I appreciate each of you who raised your hand, each of you who put anything in the chat, and even anybody, even if you didn't say a word, I'm happy you were here just listening. So, and for all of you out there watching, I appreciate you too. And so tomorrow morning we have coffee and conversation at 9 a.m. Tonight there is an outreach committee meeting. If you are on the outreach committee, it's at 6 o'clock, but that's all right. That's for state Indivisible. So other than that, I look forward to seeing all of you again. I will be here. I'll be at Coffee and Conversation in the morning. Things are much better now. And I appreciate all of you, and thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your night, and we will talk soon. Thanks for this soup, y'all.